Okay, so you know how we always think we've got the Giza Plateau pretty much figured out? And then, bam, something pops up and you're like, wait a minute.
Right.
What?
Yeah.
That's what's happening right now with the Khafre Pyramid.
The Khafre Pyramid?
The one right next to the Great Pyramid. And this time, it's these wild claims coming out saying there's all this crazy stuff hidden underneath it.
I mean, it's really gotten people talking.
For sure, and it all started with satellite scans, so we're not even talking about digging or anything.
It's fascinating because it's this Italian team, right? Curado Malango, Filipo Biandi, and Armando May.
Right.
And they've supposedly used this high-tech thing called SAR synthetic aperture radar to see right through the ground, like an X-ray, but from space.
Yeah, and that's just the start of it.
Yeah.
The way this whole thing came out is a story in itself.
Totally.
So in this deep dive, we're going to break down what they're claiming, try to understand the science behind it, and look at how people are reacting.
Yeah, because it's a bit of a mixed bag.
Definitely. We've got this YouTube interview with a researcher called Trevor Grassi, and he kind of accidentally became the main source of the news.
Right.
Then there's this other YouTube video that takes these discoveries and goes in a whole other direction.
Super speculative.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about how the pyramids might have worked, and it gets pretty out there.
And then we've got this briefing document that lays out the main discoveries in black and white.
Right. So what we want to do is figure out what's really going on.
Absolutely.
Like, what are they actually saying? Where did this info come from? How did the scientists even do this?
And separate the facts from the speculation.
Right. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of that going around.
A lot.
Okay, so let's get down to it. What did this Italian team actually find? What's the big news?
Well, both the briefing document and Trevor Grassi in his interview say that the headline is these 5 new chambers inside the Khafre Pyramid.
5.
And they're not just any chambers. They're at ground level. And get this, they say they replicate exactly the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid.
Whoa, hold on. 5 of them. And they're like mini king's chambers. That's insane. You'd think someone would have found those before.
Right. That's what makes this whole SAR thing so interesting.
Yeah.
It seems like it can see things that other methods miss.
Okay, so remind me again. What's so special about SAR? How's it different from the usual ways of looking underground?
So think about traditional archaeology. They often use ground-penetrating radar or seismic surveys, right? And those have limitations. They can only go so deep, and the resolution isn't always great.
So they can't see everything.
Exactly. But this SAR Doppler tomography, it's different. It's satellite-based, so they're looking from way up high.
Right.
And they analyze the signals from different angles so they can build a much more detailed picture.
Kind of like taking a 3D X-ray.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And because of that, they might be able to see things much deeper than ever before and with way more detail.
Okay, so 5 chambers that are like the king's chamber. That's already a lot to process. But there's more, isn't there?
Oh yeah, there's a lot more.
Okay, hit me with it.
So on top of the chambers, they're also saying they found 8 hollow cylindrical structures descending down into the earth for over 400 meters.
400 meters? That's like taller than the Eiffel Tower.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Right? And we're talking straight down into the earth.
I can't even picture that. What are these things? What do they connect to?
That's where it gets even wilder.
Oh, okay. I'm ready.
The briefing document says that 4 of these cylindrical things connect to 2 square 80 meters by 80 meter chambers.
80 by 80 meters? Are you kidding me? That's like a whole city block underground.
I know. It's mind-blowing. And remember, this is all supposed to be right under the Khafre Pyramid.
Not just somewhere random on the plateau.
Nope. Right under the pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one more thing that makes this even crazier.
Okay, don't leave me hanging.
They also mentioned 2 kilometers of interconnecting tunnels under the Giza Plateau that need more investigation.
2 kilometers of tunnels.
That's what they're saying.
So we're talking a massive underground network.
Potentially massive. It's like a whole hidden world under there.
Yeah.
And who knows what else they might find.
Seriously, if even half of this is true, it's going to rewrite history.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's back up for a second. How did we even find out about all this? You mentioned Trevor Grassi and how he kind of stumbled into being the messenger.
Yeah, so Trevor Grassi is this researcher who's been obsessed with the idea of hidden stuff under the Giza Plateau for years.
Right.
He's been following this Italian team's work, and apparently he's on their email list.
Okay.
So he gets this email with the abstract for their presentation at a conference.
So he knew about the research, but he wasn't supposed to be the one to announce it to the world.
Exactly. He emails Armando May, one of the lead researchers, and asks if he can share the abstract.
Probably thinking it was already public.
Right, like everyone at the conference would know.
Uh-huh.
And May just replies, "Go for it."
Wow.
So Grassi figures it's all good and posts it on his Facebook page.
Just casually drops this bombshell on Facebook.
Well, he thought other people would be posting it too, after the conference.
Yeah.
But turns out he was the only one. He said, "It turns out that I ended up being the source for this entire document coming out. I was the first person to read it. I asked Armando May, I said, can I share this? And he said, go for it. And I put it out figuring 900 other people would also, but as it turned out, I was the only one. I put it on Facebook.
So the biggest discovery about the pyramids in who knows how long comes out on some guy's Facebook page.
That's the internet for you.
It's crazy. Okay, so now everyone's talking about these discoveries, but let's talk about the tech for a minute.
Okay.
SAR, this synthetic aperture radar thing, most people have never even heard of it.
Right.
So how does it actually work? I mean, what are we talking about here?
Okay, so imagine you have a flashlight in a pitch black room.
Okay.
You can only see what's right in front of you. But if you move the flashlight around and take pictures from different angles,
right,
you can start to build up a 3D picture of the whole room.
Even the stuff that's hidden.
Exactly. SAR is kind of like that. It's a satellite that sends out radar signals towards the ground. And as it moves, it sends out tons of pulses.
Right.
And then it analyzes the echoes that come back. But it's not just looking at the strength of the echo.
What else is it looking at?
It's also looking at the frequency, how much the frequency changes.
Okay, so this is where the Doppler effect comes in, right?
The Doppler effect is all about how the frequency of a wave changes when the source and the observer are moving relative to each other.
Like when a siren passes you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The pitch changes as it gets closer and then farther away.
Right.
So by analyzing those tiny changes in frequency and combining data from lots of different passes, the satellite can essentially create a giant virtual antenna.
That's pretty clever.
Yeah, much bigger than anything they could actually put on a satellite. And that lets them create these super high resolution images.
I see. So it's using movement to create a more powerful eye.
Yeah.
And the Doppler part lets them see through stuff.
Yes. And then there's the tomography part. That's what lets them create a 3D model.
Okay, so how does that work?
They take all those radar signals from all those different angles and positions.
Yeah. Right.
And they use some really fancy math to basically create digital slices of the ground.
Like cutting into a cake and seeing all the layers.
Exactly. And those slices show them where the density changes underground.
So if they see a big empty space...
That could be a chamber or a tunnel.
Or it could be a different kind of rock or something.
Exactly. As Grassi put it, it's a beam sent in a radio signal, and then it's measured back. From multiple angles does this pass, kind of. And you can get the basic image of a 3D form, showing where there's pockets of lesser density, or chambers or caves or anomalies, basically.
Interesting. And the best part is they're doing all this from space, right?
Exactly. No need to dig or get permission or anything.
And that's a big deal in Egypt, right?
Hugh Grassi said, Filipo is the one who has adapted it to archaeology, and it's a satellite-based technology, so they didn't need any on-site access, which is an important point because they did not get ministry permission. This is an independent project, and it's not official by any means.
So they basically went rogue.
In a way.
Which is
pretty awesome.
I mean, the results are incredible if they're true. But how do we know this SAR thing actually works for archaeology? I mean, has it been used before to find stuff underground?
So using SAR to find really old buried stuff is pretty new.
Right.
But the technology itself has been around for a while.
Okay.
As Grassi mentioned. It's a technology that has been used in other fields before looking at volcanoes, for instance, or earth science stuff, right? Filipo is the one who has adapted it to archaeology.
So this guy, Filipo, is the one who figured out how to use it for pyramids.
Exactly.
But how do we know he did it right? How can we be sure this isn't just a bunch of blurry images and wishful thinking?
That's where the idea of proof of method comes in.
Okay, what's that?
Basically, they have to show that their technique actually works.
How do they do that?
Well, Grassi says that back in 2022, they used the same SAR method to scan the Great Pyramid.
Okay.
And they specifically targeted chambers that we already know about.
So they were testing it on something they knew was there.
Exactly. And they were able to accurately map out the shape of those chambers using the SAR data.
So that proves their method is sound.
That's the idea. As Grassi said, the proof of the method is the most important thing here. That's if they can show that they can scan a chamber we already know of and show that they can accurately describe its shape with that imagery, then we know that the method works. And they did do that in their 22 paper.
And this 2022 paper, was that peer-reviewed?
Yes. It was published in a reputable scientific journal.
So other scientists have checked their work.
Exactly. Which gives their claims a lot more weight.
Okay, so that's good. But right now, we're basically taking their word for it that they found all this stuff under the Khafre Pyramid.
Well, sort of.
What do you mean?
The conference where they presented their findings just wrapped up.
Okay.
And they're supposed to be releasing a lot more info soon, like all the technical details and everything.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah. Grassi mentioned a complete 4-hour video presentation of the entire conference. Complete technical details, everything everyone wants is coming very soon. That's what he said.
They must have a lot to show.
I guess so.
Do we know where this video is going to be?
Yeah, it's supposed to be on Nicole Chicowo's YouTube channel.
Okay, so anyone who wants to really get into the weeds,
They can check that out.
awesome. And they're also working on a written report, right?
That's right. Maybe with an English translation so everyone can understand it.
That would be great. So we'll have to wait and see what they release.
Definitely. It's going to be interesting.
It's going to be huge. Okay, so Grassi seemed really excited about this whole thing in his interview.
He was practically bouncing off the walls.
Like, he really thinks the SAR thing is going to revolutionize archaeology.
Oh, absolutely. He said, this technology is going to revolutionize archaeology. When we saw LAR come out, they found like 200 cities in northern Guatemala and Mexico.
Yeah.
In like a weekend. This is going to be, you don't even need airplanes. This will allow anyone in the world to actually sense underground cities across the planet.
So no more digging? Just scan the whole planet from space.
That's the dream. And it could actually happen with this technology.
Imagine all the stuff we could find.
Lost cities, hidden temples. Who knows?
It's incredible. And Grassi also talked about some of his own research, right?
Yeah, he's been investigating the Giza plateau for years.
And he thinks his work might connect to these new discoveries.
Right. He mentioned some GPR scans that he and his colleagues did back in 2006.
GPR, that's ground-penetrating radar, right?
Yep. And they found something under the Khafre Pyramid back then.
They found some anomalies, some weird readings that suggested there might be something down there.
But they couldn't be sure.
Not with GPR alone. But Grassi thinks that what they saw back then could be the same stuff that the Italian team is seeing now with SAR.
So his GPR data could actually back up the new findings.
That's what he's hoping for. He said the GPR scan shows a tunnel or a chamber going directly under the pyramid, almost certainly connecting into these things they're showing us now.
So it's like two different lines of evidence converging.
Exactly. And Grassi and his team have been trained to find a way into these underground areas for years. So maybe this SAR data will finally give them the map they need.
It's definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the discoveries, the technology, and the potential implications.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. And there's one more thing we need to address,
What's that?
the time portal thing.
Oh, yeah. In the interview, Grassi mentioned some graphics that were shown at the conference, and they were pretty out there. Like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, but it's important to understand that those graphics were just artistic interpretations.
They weren't part of the actual scientific data.
Exactly. Grassi was very clear about that. He said, the project has nothing to do with that. It is just, the Scan the Conference is going to be focused on, it's going to be as absolutely watertight of a scientific presentation as it can be.
So the science is focused on the hard evidence.
The radar scans the anomalies.
And the time portal stuff was just someone's idea of what it all might mean.
Right. Maybe the researchers have some theories, but that's separate from the actual data.
It's important to keep those things straight.
Absolutely. Okay, so now let's talk about the other YouTube video.
The one with the crazy theory.
The one called On Pyramids Are What? On New Disclosure Reveals.
Right. This one goes way beyond just what the Italian team found.
It takes it in a whole other direction.
It's all about the pyramids being some kind of ancient power plant.
Or even resurrection machines.
Yeah, it gets pretty wild.
So basically, the speaker in the video used to be skeptical of the whole pyramids as power plants idea.
But then he saw the news about the new discoveries.
And he's convinced that it all fits together now.
Okay, so walk me through it. How does he think the pyramids work?
Okay, so his theory is that the Giza pyramids, especially when they're still covered in those white limestone casing stones.
And had the gold capstone on top.
Right. He thinks they were giant piezoelectric discharge structures.
Piezoelectric? What does that even mean?
So piezoelectric materials are special. They create an electrical charge when you squeeze them or put pressure on them. And the speaker thinks that the weight of the pyramid pressing down on those hollow chambers underground.
The ones the Italian team found.
Right. He thinks that created the pressure needed to generate an electrical charge.
Right.
And the Nile water might have played a role too.
So the pyramids were like giant batteries.
In a way. He compares the limestone casing stones to a Leyden jar.
What's a Leyden jar?
It's an old-fashioned capacitor. It stores electrical charge.
Okay.
And he thinks the limestone acted like the dielectric material in the jar trapping the electricity. And then gold capstone at the top.
He compares that to the tip of a Tesla coil.
Exactly. He thinks it acted like a giant electrode, releasing the energy in a huge discharge.
Like a lightning bolt shooting out of the top of the pyramid.
Exactly. And he has some quotes in the video to back this up. He said the actual limestone casing stones work the same way the metal layer does between two layers of glass in a Leyden jar. And it'll actually arc out from that coil. It's the same effect. You could stick a little metal pyramid on the side of the secondary of a Tesla coil, and it'll arc out from that. It could just be a rod, but of course it's the metal-tipped, gold-covered, actually a bend stone on the top of the pyramid.
That's a pretty wild image.
It is. And he takes it even further.
Oh, so?
He connects this whole electrical discharge thing to the idea of the pyramids being resurrection machines.
Like literally bringing people back from the dead.
Well, not quite. He thinks that the ancient Egyptians saw these lightning bolts shooting out of the pyramids.
And maybe some kind of glow around the capstone.
Right. And they interpreted that as a sign that the pyramids were a pathway to the afterlife.
So it was like a giant visual spectacle.
Yeah. And people would come from all over to have rituals performed at the pyramids.
To help their loved ones reach the afterlife.
Exactly. And the speaker thinks that this whole thing was a huge moneymaker for ancient Egypt.
Like people paid big bucks for these rituals.
He thinks so. He said, ancient commentary about the pyramids actually drew an enormous amount of people in. They said that these were resurrection machines, and for X amount of coin, that's how these pyramids were paid for, we will vault the soul of your loved one up through the lightning which shoots off into the heavens.
That's a fascinating theory.
It is. But it's important to remember that this is just one guy's interpretation.
It's not based on any hard evidence.
Right. It's all speculation based on the limited information we have right now.
Okay, so then why don't the pyramids shoot lightning bolts today?
Good question. The speaker in the video has an explanation for that too.
Okay, I'm listening.
He thinks that the pyramids stopped working because the underground chambers got filled up with silt and debris over time.
And maybe groundwater too.
Right. So the pressure isn't there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the limestone casing stones were all stripped off.
Which he thinks were crucial for storing the electrical charge.
Exactly. He said they stopped working due to lack of main M. The cavities of the vertical shafts are filled in. That's undeniable. And they've peeled off the metal equivalent of the Leyden jar of the white outer limestone casing stones. So, of course, it doesn't work anymore.
So basically, he thinks the pyramids were deactivated by a combination of natural processes and human actions.
Yep. It's a pretty creative explanation.
It is, but we have to be careful not to get carried away.
Absolutely. This whole resurrection machine idea is super interesting.
But it's important to remember that it's just a theory.
It's not based on any scientific evidence.
Yeah.
It's just one guy's interpretation of what the new discoveries might mean.
Right. And even the discoveries themselves aren't 100% confirmed yet.
We're still waiting for the Italian team to release all their data.
So there's a lot more to learn.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's recap what we've talked about today.
Okay.
We've got these potentially groundbreaking claims of massive hidden chambers and tunnels under the Khafre Pyramid.
All discovered using this amazing new SAR technology.
Right. And the way the news came out was pretty wild.
Just a random Facebook post.
And then we've got these incredibly imaginative theories about what it all means.
From ancient power plants to resurrection machines.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that we're still in the early stages of this.
We need to wait for the scientific evidence to come out before we jump to any conclusions.
Absolutely.
And even then, we need to be careful about separating the hard data from the speculation.
Right, because there's always going to be speculation, especially with something as mysterious as the pyramids.
So for those of you who want to learn more about the technical details of the SAR stands,
make sure to check out Nicole Chicowo's YouTube channel.
They're supposed to be releasing a 4-hour presentation soon.
4 hours. There's going to be a lot to unpack there.
And if you want to keep up with Trevor Grassi's research,
head over to his YouTube channel.
He's been doing some fascinating work on the Giza plateau for years.
And he's definitely one to watch in this whole unfolding story.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay.
We're constantly making new discoveries about the ancient world.
And sometimes those discoveries challenge our assumptions.
They make us question everything we thought we knew.
And they force us to confront the limits of our understanding.
So as we learn more about these claims about the Khafre Pyramid,
I think it's important to ask ourselves, what else is out there? What other secrets are waiting to be uncovered?
And how will those discoveries change our understanding of the past and our place in the universe?
Those are big questions, and I don't think we have the answers yet.
But it's exciting to think about the possibilities.
It is, and that's what keeps us exploring.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the mysteries of the Khafre Pyramid.
And until next time, keep looking up